Emmanuel Herrera, or Coach Manny, however you want to call me. Coming to you from sunny, beautiful San Diego, California. And today we're going to be talking about two different concepts of motor learning. The first one is going to be the degrees of freezing of movements, and the second one that we're going to apply today will be the practice session. So on the first one, the concept of freezing the degrees of movement will entail kind of like dividing the technique and the movement into separate movement so that we can concentrate on the learners so that they can understand each one of the movement separately to relieve the stress of remembering the whole movement. Once they have managed each of the steps of the movement, we can move on to the whole technique, and then they can practice as long as they're understanding the concepts. The same applying motor learning to the concept of practice session, we're going to implement that to the teaching of a different skill. So today we're going to be using two different sports. For the freezing and the degrees of movement, we're going to use tennis. We're going to use the forehand stroke for tennis. And then for the practice session, we're going to use pickleball. So we're going to use serving in the pickleball to explain how to apply those concepts. Again, see you all on the court. Welcome back. Here at the tennis court, we're going to be explaining freezing the degrees of movement concept, utilizing the forehand stroke in tennis to explain it. Okay, so first we're going to start with the stance, right? So we're going to start with the stance, shoulder width apart, flex your knees a little bit, and when you grab the racket on your hands, it's both hands, right? So that we can do the movement. But right now, I'm on the right side, so we're gonna do this side. So just from here, the forehand stroke entails this movement either with one hand, which is gonna be across the chest all the way, and then facing the face of the racket to wherever we want the ball. That's the movement right there. So right now, I'm applying movement from the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. This is how we're going to divide the movement. The shoulder rotation, the elbow, and the wrist. So from here, waiting for the ball. Ball comes right there. That's the forehand stroke in tennis. Ball comes, forehand stroke. Forehand stroke. Right. So to divide the movements, we can start by freezing doing the movement with the wrist, frizz. So moving the elbow and freezing the wrist. After we have managed that, we can go ahead and freeze the elbow. So freezing the elbow. So freezing the elbow and the wrist. So we're gonna freeze both of them. Now we're just moving the shoulder. The only thing that we're moving is the shoulder. After they have managed to control those two movements, we're going to incorporate freezing the shoulder. So freezing the shoulder will look like this. Just moving the torso. Just with the torso. So at that point, we have frozen the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder. Once you have practiced those three freezing movements, we can move on to incorporate the whole movement. This is how it's gonna look. Forehand stroke. And you can do that practice without a ball. After you have managed that movement, you can go ahead and incorporate the ball. So after we have already understand the movement So we already froze the wrist, we froze the elbow, and we froze the shoulder. We practiced freezing the wrist. We did a couple of movements. We froze the elbow with the wrist, and then we did a couple of movements. And then we froze the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder, and we did that movement. After we managed to understand the movements, we went ahead and started doing the practice with all the movement and removing the freezing of each of the techniques. Now we're gonna incorporate with the ball. Forehand stroke. All right, so now we're gonna explain the concept of practice session. So we're gonna use pickleball. So we're gonna demonstrate the skill of serving in pickleball, and we're gonna apply the concept of practice session from motor learning. Okay, so doing the pickleball. So this is the movement. So we're gonna toss the ball, we're gonna hit it. Toss the ball, we're gonna hit it. You gotta be under the wrist. You're gonna toss the ball and hit it. Okay, so the first thing is the grip. This is how we're gonna grip the paddle. Full hand, we're gonna grip the paddle. Strong grip. Stance. We're gonna stand like this, shoulder width apart, knees flex. Ball toss. We're gonna toss the ball on the side, right here. Ball toss, right here. Then once we have the ball toss, the contact of the ball have to be underneath the wrist. When we hit it, it's gonna be with the paddle facing where we want the ball. Ball toss and hit. Ball toss and hit. We're gonna practice a couple of times without the ball. So the whole movement, remembering shoulder width apart, knees flex, and then when we hit the ball, it's gonna be under the wrist. Under the wrist. Right? Under the wrist. Now we're gonna go over what a sample practice session will look like. So you're gonna start with the warm up. So the warm up is gonna be about a 10-minute warm up, focusing in mobility and coordination. Here I'm doing some of the warm up, kind of like preparing myself before we start doing the instruction of the technique. Then you can move to the technique instruction, which will entail the demonstration and the explanation of how to do the pickleball serving. Utilizing that technique, we are going to highlight key components like the ones that we highlighted before. The way you're going to toss the ball, the way you're going to stand, the way you're going to hit the ball, where you're going to hit the ball, and how you want to hit the ball. Then after that, we can move on to static drills,
which it will be the practice part of the practice session, which you can start first by doing swings without a ball. Then you can incorporate the ball once you start seeing that the athlete is feeling comfortable. You're always trying to focus on something, so you can focus on the grip, the stance, or the ball toss, whichever is the things that is having the most difficult. Then after you're done with the static drill, you can move with the dynamic drill, which it will be serving and doing the practice, serving over the net, focusing on consistency and accuracy. And then once we are progressing with all of those different steps, then we can start talking about the game situation, which will incorporate serving practice into simulated games, situations like where you want to have the ball depending on what is the situation that is going on. You're going to emphasize in the decision making on what serving to use, how fast I want to use, do I want to put effect in the ball, stuff like that. And then after that, you always want to finish all of your sessions with a cool down. It can be like a 5 minute cool down just to relax and, and reflect on everything.
This concludes our training. So today we explain the freezing the degrees of freedom and the practice session concept from motor learning. So thank you all for tuning in. See you all in the next one. Coach Manny.